Now, one of the big announcements at last night's State of the Nation address was a commitment to strengthen efforts against graft. President Cyril Ramaphosa announced the establishment of an anti-corruption advisory council. For more on this, I'm joined by Karam Singh, the head of legal and investigations at Corruption Watch. Karam, thank you so much for speaking to us. Thoughts on the establishment of that organization, of that body rather, by the president?
Well, it's an important development. I think it's one of the pillars of the National Anti-Corruption Strategy, which was approved by Cabinet at the end of 2020. I think what we were expecting to see now would be the actual implementation and rollout of the National Anti-Corruption Strategy, but it seems like it might be a chicken and egg situation that the president's looking to the establishment of this advisory council to then be the guardian and be the agent for the rollout of the National Anti-Corruption Strategy.
So now to have an anti-corruption unit established, does this speak to issues around governance, or does it speak to the levels of corruption in this country?
Well, I think it speaks to both. I mean, we have a significant corruption challenge. It's a corruption challenge which hasn't diminished despite a lot of exposure over the recent period, particularly allegations coming out of the Zondo Commission. I mean, it's amazing to note that while we have this Commission of Inquiry on state capture, we have this massive corruption scandal in 2020 as a result of the PPE procurement and the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So the National Anti-Corruption Strategy is something which has been in the works for a long time. And it's clear that up to this point, the response from government to the corruption challenges, to the vulnerabilities that we face as a society have been insufficient. So really what we want to see is a ramped up response, which is across the entire value chain. So it's not just at the level of investigations at the end when the money's already been gone, but that we have stronger preventative measures put in place up front to stop corruption in the first place.
There certainly seems to be a lot of enthusiasm around creating certain policy. What about the implementation, the actual follow-through?
I mean, this is unfortunately has been an Achilles heel for us as a society, that we have outstanding laws, we have got outstanding regulations, we've got a great constitution, but it's often been in the implementation of those policies where we fall down. So I think what we're really looking for is an independent entity that has protections similar to those of a Chapter 9 body that can then go about and pursue its mandate without fear, favor, or prejudice, and protection from the possibility of capture. We have seen strong institutions of state, the Auditor General and the Special Investigating Unit, come to mind as institutions which were not captured, that continue to be able to execute on their mandate. But I think we need that kind of independent anti-corruption agency ultimately to give us the confidence that we're addressing the corruption challenges that we face as a society.
So what happens to the Hawks and the role that they're currently playing?
You know, I think those are important details which are going to have to be hammered out. The Hawks clearly are a elite law enforcement agency, but I think there's always been a debate going back to the Glenister litigation as to whether the Hawks were an appropriate replacement for the Scorpions, whether they actually had the mandate to be an all-purpose anti-corruption body that could pursue the kind of remedies that we see the SIU pursuing. So not just criminal investigations and criminal prosecutions, but also disciplinary action, also asset forfeiture and civil recoveries. So, you know, the fight against corruption is not just about criminal investigations and prosecutions, which the Hawks would remain the lead body, but it's really about this total society approach.
Now, is it fair to leave the issues around dealing with corruption in the hands of government? What about civil society? What does the average person on the street do? What can we do?
This is this idea of a total society approach, that corruption is not just the responsibility of government, but that we all have a role to play, whether it be, refusing the request to give cool drink money to a traffic officer when stopped on the street, or to look the other way as a civil servant when we're asked to do the wrong thing. So the idea of the National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council is that it would be a multi-stakeholder body, that civil society would be part of this. And I think that would help in many ways guarantee the independence of that body, and to ensure that that we do have this broad approach, which isn't just about government, but it's about the private sector, and it's about civil society working in concert to address the challenges we face.
Now, I'd like to think that we're not born corrupt, that this is something that we learn. I'd also like to think that in many instances you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Let's go back a few years and look at the possibility of teaching certain values to youngsters. Because obviously what we want to do is we want to fix a broken system, but we are dealing with the people that are currently corrupt. How do we prepare tomorrow's leaders, the people that are entering government next year and the year after that?
It's an outstanding point, and I think it's really critical to thinking about how we move beyond this, which is about teaching ethics. It's about the way that we teach the values of the Constitution, and whether that's part of the curriculum, and then how we prepare the civil service to be able to deliver on its mandate, to ensure that we have an independent, impartial civil service, which is above approach. So it's also about ensuring that we have the right kind of vetting mechanisms in place, and that there's regular checks and declarations. So it's about really a lot of the entities that we have in place, like the Public Service Commission, coming to the party and being part of this total society approach. But I can tell you, going back 10, 15, 20 years, there have been these types of recommendations in place around the need to have a values-based curriculum, and that within that curriculum, we teach principles around good governance and ethics, and it's all laid out for us in the Constitution. It's nothing more than the Constitution asks of us. But I don't know that as a society we've really embraced that type of an approach to how we do our pedagogy, how we do our instruction, and also how we prepare the civil service to deliver on the high mandate that they have.
So do you think that poverty in the country and the inequality that we experience is a huge contributing factor to corruption?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a symbiotic relationship, really, that the whole idea of corruption and the delivery on socioeconomic rights. So whether we look at health, whether we look at education, if we look at across the lines of socioeconomic rights, which government is supposed to deliver, which is the promise of progressive realization of rights, it's corruption that's ultimately the big impediment to the realization of these rights. So the two are inextricably linked.
Karam Singh, Head of Legal and Investigations at Corruption Watch, has been lovely speaking to you. Thank you so much for your time.